All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Pulse of Fins Nation. I'm your host, Louis Sung. I am joined by Ron Caniff. I am joined by Chad Ronnebaum. I am joined by Eric Wiedeke, who came in right at the buzzer as the show was getting ready to start. Gentlemen, how are you this evening?
Good.
Doing all right. I was hoping the Panthers would actually play a little bit of hockey before 7:30, but I was wrong.
They're too busy celebrating the banner going up.
I saw them a couple weeks ago preseason. Tampa and the Panthers and the Lightning played a preseason game in Orlando, where the Solar Bears normally play, which is a Lightning, team. So yeah, that was pretty cool. That was my first live hockey game ever.
Did you understand anything that was happening, Ron?
You know what? I had somebody next to me, so I could ask all the dumb questions. And yeah, pretty much. I tell you, live hockey is awesome. It really was. I actually really enjoyed it.
You'll have to teach me what you've learned, sir, because I look at hockey and again, the same question keeps running through my mind over and over again. It's like, why is it legal to smash somebody into the floor, but if you trip somebody with your stick, that's considered going to the penalty box? I feel like those two things don't. That's like if you end up slamming Tua's head to the ground and you're fine, but if you trip him with your foot, that's considered a penalty.
Well, isn't tripping literally a penalty in the NFL?
It is a penalty in football. Yes,
so.
it is.
Yeah.
And hockey too, right?
Yeah, and just same reason in boxing that you can't go and kick somebody in the ankle, but you can punch him in the face. It's just part of the game.
I don't know. I think inherently we just like a little violence in our sports.
Oh, absolutely. Hockey's great.
If they would let fighting go on in the NFL after the whistle, oh my god, that'd be fun.
Yeah, it would be.
There was an old saying back in the I guess the late 80s, early 90s that I remember anyway. There was an old sports bloopers DVD that I watched when I was a kid, and it talked about how this old saying is that I went to see a fight and a hockey game broke out.
Yeah. Nice.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We're actually talking about a Miami Dolphins win this time, which is a little bizarre, given everything that we've seen over the past couple of weeks. Not that I'm complaining, mind you, but I personally, because my father made it a point to tell me in text messages, he wants me to talk about this, and I won't spoil what my thoughts are. But before we get into that really quick, just want to go ahead and mention that, as always, this show is brought to you by our good friends over at jerseys305.com.
Hey, it's Ethan Skolnick for the 5 Reasons Sports Network. We've got a great new sponsor that fits with us perfectly. It's called jerseys305.com. That's jerseys305.com. This is your home for dead stock and vintage jerseys from the Heat, Panthers, Dolphins, Marlins, and the other local teams. Their mission was born from a passion for wearing jerseys of the old styles and the past players. Jerseys 305 aims to make every fan stand out from the crowd with unique pieces that you don't commonly see anymore. Maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, but not today. And Jerseys 305 was created by the fans, for the fans. They're diehards just like you. In fact, they're probably listening to this episode right now. So check them out, Jerseys 305, their partnership with 5 Reasons Sports, celebrating with a 10% discount on the next purchase using the code 5 at checkout. Unlock your exclusive savings on the entire vintage collection.
And again, that is jerseys305.com. Use that promo code 5. You get 10% off your next order when you go on there and get some memorabilia, which, by the way, now we actually might have a reason to go get some. Again, it looks like the Dolphins have not surrendered this season just yet. So very interestingly, it seems that maybe Mike McDaniel has learned his lesson a little bit about what it's going to for the Miami Dolphins offense to actually function when Tua is not around. I said it during the pregame this past Sunday that if you really want to win and make this offense go without Tua, you just basically need to play like you're bigger than the other team and just shove them around and run the football. And lo and behold, 40 rush attempts later, the Dolphins actually ended up winning that game. It was ugly, to be sure. Passing the football still looked like it was a struggle, but with all the time they were running the ball, Huntley actually managed to be able to find some guys open in the middle of the field, which, again, that's how the Dolphins passing offense works. They don't like throwing to the borders. They don't like throwing to the checkdowns. They like finding guys in that 10 to 15-yard range right there smack in the middle of the defense. And that only works if everything else works too. Like, you have to be able to do the basics, and they looked like they were finally able to do that on Sunday against the Patriots. So take it or leave it, regardless of how bad the Patriots are as a football team. I know that they decided that it's time for Drake May to come into the game. He's going to be playing for the Patriots this upcoming week. So I guess this loss to the Dolphins finally triggered them to say, you know what, we've seen enough of Jacoby Brissett, which personally, quite frankly, I feel that's unfair to Jacoby Brissett because of all things considered, he didn't look too bad against Miami, but I guess they're pissed off and they've had enough of waiting around. So, but now we have Miami. They're off this week, so that means we are off this week. We get to take a little bit of a breather. Like my heart was pounding the entire time that game was happening because part of me was thinking to myself, "Oh God, they're about to lose this, aren't they?" And a rule that I did not know existed ended up saving Miami in that the toe tap only counts on the sides, not in the back of the end zone.
So I don't even think it's about the back of the end zone. I think it's
it's
all
not about the back
if
of the
it's
end
one
zone.
consistent step. Because the toe tap is like the toe will tap and then it's almost like a little jump. So that's one step, and then
okay, but if you're falling forward on the side and you're all you can get is your toes in and you catch the ball, does that mean that unless the rest of the foot comes down,
but
you
the
lose?
the next thing that hits the ground there is your arms. It's not your foot again. It's not your foot as part of this as one concurrent step.
It's a weird rule. Kind of makes sense. I don't think they're changing it. It's weird. It just doesn't come into play very often, but it is what it is. I don't know. The Patriots have benefited from so many different kinds of weird kind of thing over the years. I don't give a crap that they lost this game because somebody's heel was out. I just don't care. I feel not even a little bit sorry. Doesn't matter for them anyway. They're probably a worse team than we are. I don't care. It doesn't matter. We did them a favor. Honestly, they get a little bit higher draft pick now. It's fine. I think they need to stop complaining.
Chad, you haven't been around for a while. We've been watching this team slump, and finally they got out of it with. Because we talked to Mike McDaniel mentioned he was going to make changes, and as far as the personnel goes, that has not changed very much. But his philosophy, I guess, changed on Sunday. So, do you feel like he's finally shown that he has some level of willingness to change, some self-awareness, or do you feel like this might have been a one-time fluke that is just the nature of the matchup we were facing?
No, I felt that this was probably for this season the best game Mike McDaniel's called from a play calling standpoint. And I guess as I've thought back with Mike McDaniel, he's a first-time head coach. I know it's not his first year, but he doesn't have a lot of head coaching experience. And I think there's when you get into coaching, you can get into an ego situation where you start to believe it's your system, it's your play calls that are having success, and you forget the way to have success is your job is to maximize the talent of the players that you have. And I think in this game, we hadn't really seen Miami utilize Janu Smith at all this year, which has been a mystery to me considering the amount of penalties and drops and stuff we've seen Julian Hill suffer. But he used Janu Smith in this game. And he's a matchup problem for what these teams are trying to do to stop the run, with safeties and linebackers and stuff like that. And I think that helped the running game. And he stuck to the running game because I think a lot of defenses had figured out that Mike McDaniel doesn't like to run the football, even though he was a run game coordinator. And he stuck with it this game. And, I think it really showed the dividends of the Jalen Wright pick. He came in and he ran angry. He ran hard. He's not just a light back that just tries to outrun everybody. He showed some physicality. And you have to do that in the situation he's in. And I think the last two games, Mike McDaniel was in that mindset that it's my plays, it's my system. That's why we're so good. And you start to realize that you got to protect Skylar Thompson. You got to protect Tyler Huntley. They can't do the offense that Tua could do. And you got to be basic. You can't be as risky. You can't go for fourth down on the 50-yard line because you don't have the offense to overcome it if you give up points. And he didn't do that. And so I thought he called a good game from an offensive play calling standpoint. I think our defense really showed up well. I think I've liked his blend of, he'll play a little bit of soft zone here and there. Like he was doing that initially at the end of that Patriots game, he was running some soft zones and giving them that. But to come in and call a cover 0 when the game's on the line on that down that he sent the house at Brissett there at the end, and it paid off. I like to see that because Vic Fangio would have 100% played prevent and let Brissett get his feet set and try to throw a ball with extra guys back. And he didn't do that. So I like that. And I also liked at the end of the game, he did play a soft zone because I was watching the game with my son and I was like, he's like, what are they doing? They're giving that guy the field. I'm like, you want them to throw the ball into the middle of the field and bounce because they're not going to have time to get a playoff. And that's exactly what New England ended up doing, was just running the clock out. And so I really liked the defense that Weaver's been calling, the way he's mixing it up. Finally, my last aspect, I don't understand how you keep Crossman at this point right now. I've never seen special teams have the amount of problems the Dolphins have. I mean, I think it was the Titans game. It kind of runs together because we've had 3 straight games of terrible problems with the special teams, but we had 6 penalties in one game. I mean, the special teams aren't on the field that much to get 6 penalties. We lined up in that game and punt, just standard punt team, 2 penalties. This game we had a punt block because Duke Riley didn't know how to block inside out, and that's coming off of Duke Riley last week inexplicably jumping in the middle of 4 guys trying to touch a ball, and I'm just like, you see all these problems, and I know some of them are freak problems like drop snaps on field goals and everything else, but at some point the accountability has to go back to your special teams coordinator, because it's just been nothing but a circus all year. So there was no change in that in this game. I mean, we should have won this game probably by 9 to 10 points at least, but we couldn't get our act together on special teams at all, and it nearly cost us another game.
For just for reference, I just looked it up just out of sheer curiosity. Unfortunately, Darren Rizzi is still the assistant head coach and special teams coordinator for the New Orleans Saints, so we can't go and steal him back anytime soon. So, the Danny Crossman thing, we've been screaming about this for like 2 seasons now. I don't understand how he manages to stick around. I will say this. Braxton Berrios has bizarrely had a couple of good returns these past couple of games.
Respiration.
One per game. One per game. He's had something. Yeah, I mean, if he's desperate to contribute, then I would hope that he does freaking something. But even then, it's like...
Yeah, but I would counter that to say, what has Braxton Berrios, what mistake has he made on special teams in his entire tenure with the Dolphins? I must punt, fielded a punt you shouldn't field.
I mean, I can't think of anything.
I mean,
he knows what he's doing. Is my point.
He's the safe
Why he's
guy.
on the team?
Yeah, he's the safe guy.
Right. Yeah. That's ultimately what I ended up saying during the preseason and everything. Is like, yeah, he's going to stick around because it's his job to lose, and he's not going to lose it. That's literally the only reason he's here, which is not great. Like, I understand the concept of making it so that, you're always going to have somebody who's not going to make a mistake on punt returns. But if all you're waiting for is just for some guy to catch the ball and do a fair catch, like I'm sure you have other guys who can do that. You don't have to waste a roster spot on Braxton Berrios. Like, you can't tell me that Javon Holland can't stand back there and catch the ball and wave fair catch. Like, you can't tell me that.
Hand, but
not now. Not now. He can't.
No, he could. He could. But he's not worth the risk. I mean, Braxton Berrios.
What risk? He's gonna just do this. He's literally not allowed to be touched.
Well, if you're just for sure gonna, I mean, Braxton Berrios flipped the field in this game, fielding a bad punt. He came up running it, fielded it. He knows when to fair catch it. He's not a big, like, I'm going to risk taking and getting blown up, but that's also not risking, the negative side of getting hit when you try to not fair catch a ball and you get hit and fumble or muff the ball or something like that. So I don't, I understand he's not a huge risk to take one to the house on the return game, but with all the problems we have right now, I appreciate that at least it's a form of stability right now with all the mistakes that are being made on special teams. That and what I mean is that if Braxton Berrios gets hurt, it doesn't affect our offensive game plan. But you get Tyreek Hill knocked out, or you get Jalen Waddle knocked out, or you get Javon Holland knocked out, that affects the team in that game, because that's a key player on the offense or defensive side of the ball. And our offense doesn't lose much if Braxton Berrios gets hurt. That's just the reality.
Yeah. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get into my overall thoughts on the game itself. On the one hand, like I said, I'm very happy that it seems that Mike McDaniel has learned a lesson, as it were, in what it means about play calling and understanding who you have with your personnel at any given moment. At the same time, I remember saying that I can't find it in me to get excited simply because, again, when you run into a game where it seems like the two teams are fighting on who wants to win the game less and not who wants it more, which, let's be real, it kind of felt like that a lot of times. It's like who can make the most mistakes and lose the game. I remember several years ago, Adam Gase was still the head coach for the Dolphins. And I remember saying on Twitter, and I got ripped to shreds for it, it's like, I would rather have been a competitive loser than a ugly, nasty, gross, I can't believe, how did we manage to win this game after everything we did kind of winner. And the only reason I said that then is because if you manage to look good, even if you lose, there at least is hope for future games that, okay, we'll just clean up a few things and then we'll go out there and we'll compete even harder the next time. But if you suck the whole way through and you luck into a win, then, okay, you have very little to build on. Now we're looking at McDaniel and saying that we're building on the decision that he's made, and we're saying that that is the foundation for hopefully the future, and saying that, okay, he's learned his lesson. Now when Tua comes back, we'll be able to build on that instead. But that's the ultimate counter argument, as it were, against the it's a win is a win kind of crowd. Yeah, a win is a win. It means a win in the win column, and you don't have another loss to add. But I am a believer in style points. I want to see good football being played. So we beat New England, yes, but there was, aside from running the football, it didn't look like much had changed for the offense. It still looked not great.
I cannot disagree more. And here's why. We have to account for the fact that it was Tyler Huntley back there. The offense, there were guys open. The concepts were working. If that's Tua in that offense on Sunday, the Dolphins score 30-plus points. Easy. Absolutely. The way that they were running the football and the way that they actually got Tyreek Hill was actually making an impact with Tyler Huntley back there. That's a game where Tyreek goes for 150 if that's Tua. All of a sudden McDaniel realizes, hey, if they're going to play the linebackers 15 yards downfield in the passing game, I can go to Jonnu Smith 5 yards downfield and I can get that run after the catch. The thing that you look at, if you're going to look at this game through a positive lens, and there are negatives to talk about to be sure, is it's not McDaniel has learned how to coach without Tua or any of that, because yes, that's a good thing to have. Of course, it's a negative because then you're almost counting on your starting quarterback being hurt a certain percentage of the time. But I'm looking at these concepts and I'm saying, okay, how can Mike McDaniel actually integrate some of this stuff when Tua is in the lineup again? Because even before he got hurt, it looked like teams were kind of keying in on some of the things that the Dolphins were doing. You look at the Jacksonville game, you look at the beginning of the Buffalo game, the things that the Dolphins are doing now to overcome some of the shortcomings that they have at quarterback are things that they can use to beat some of those counters that defenses have presented them with. And so I'm looking at it like that, and I'm saying, okay, well, you can keep the dynamic portions of the offense, but you can fold some of this in to become a much more complete offense. Because when you look at Jonnu Smith and adding Jalen Wright, this is kind of what we thought we were going to get, at least the aspects that they're contributing at the beginning of the season when they signed Jonnu Smith, when they drafted Jalen Wright. We thought, okay, well, now you have Jalen Wright, so that means you can flex out Devon Achane a little bit more now, which they can. And I think that that's something that we will see going forward as Raheem Mostert gets healthier, as Jalen Wright begins to get his legs underneath him a little bit. I don't know how Odell Beckham is going to, affect the offense, but I'm sure at some point he's going to make some kind of impact on the field. Once River Craycraft gets back in this offense, I think he's a very underrated piece to what the Dolphins want to do. So I think that he's got a potential to make an impact going forward. So I look at the game and I say, okay, sure. Did I, on that last drive, I thought the ghost of Vic Fangio was possessing Anthony Weaver up until those last couple of plays when he dialed up the blitz. And sure, the special teams was, and let's be real, still is a mess. But I looked at what they did on offense and I said, okay, I think what they've integrated with Tyler Huntley are things that they can integrate with Tua to present teams, as a counter to what teams want to do to them and to how teams have defended them over the course of this last 9 or 10 games that the offense has really struggled in the regular season going back to last year.
So what I'm hearing basically is that you're saying it wasn't really as ugly as it felt watching it live.
No, because when you account for the fact that the special teams cost them a good amount of points, and you account for the fact that this is still Tyler Huntley's third week in this system, he's going to continue to get more comfortable. I expect him to look even better against Indianapolis. And then when you account for the fact that Tua is going to come back at some point, more than likely, it seems like they're going to do what they can to get him back for Arizona. We'll see, of course. Can't say anything for certain there, but it seems like that's the direction we're going in. I kind of look at this and I say, okay, I can see where the offense might be starting to come together a little bit.
So to recap, you feel the Dolphins have, in a way, they have turned some kind of a corner. You feel like that we have some progress that we can actually build on here.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with that. Yeah.
All right, Ron, I want to go to you. So we've discussed now that the Dolphins, you think, have turned a corner. So now, what is it that you want to see next? Because again, if we're going to talk about building blocks that we're going to be using for the rest of the season moving forward, with or without Tua, I want to hear from you exactly what is it you want to see next from this team in order to feel like they can have a shot at going forward.
Here's what I want to see next. What we did in this game is exactly what we need to do the next 2 games. Because if you look at my little mouse right over here, Indianapolis Colts giving up 157 yards a game in rushing. Then the next game, the Cardinals giving up 147.8 yards in rushing. Here's 2 more teams that you can go out and do the same thing you did against the Patriots, and that's run the crap out of the ball. Even better. I mean, I actually didn't even look to see where the Patriots fell on this list. They're at 118, and that's after we ran 178 on them. So they were, up to this point, a top rushing defense, and we still ran the ball all over them. We should be able to run the ball on the Cardinals and on the Colts. And then with the Cardinals, if the Cardinals decide, okay, they're really running the ball, that's their offense now, we better come up, then now you have Tua back probably. That should allow you to maybe complete some of those pass plays that have been available, but Huntley doesn't see, or maybe you're just a little nervous to throw, etc. So that is what I'm hoping to see 100%, is them come out and continue to run the ball, especially against those 2 teams.
But specifically, it can't just be running the football, because one thing that I really did notice, and I feel like this is something that we've been screaming about for the longest now, they didn't do just a whole bunch of sweep around the corner type of runs in this game. They actually went between the guards and the tackles, and they actually ran forward instead of sideways for a change. And I feel like that had a massive impact, because other teams have been keying on that and just swarming the sidelines to stop anybody who's trying to run the ball. All of a sudden, they go up the middle and they don't know what to do with that information. They're like, wait, they're running kind of power-ish in the sense that they're not trying to run away from the defense. They're running towards it. Chad, did you notice anything different about the offensive line and how they were running the ball this past Sunday?
I think the primary thing, I can't speak to that, is that they were sticking to it, because you're going to get second and 9s and seconds and 8s sometimes. You don't run for 4 or 5 yards every single carry. And so you kind of got to stick with it, because we have 3 backs that are very dangerous. This isn't a Frank Gore running the ball right now for the Dolphins, who, even if you open up a hole, he's only going to get, a few extra yards because he's just not that fast. All 3 of these backs are a problem for defenses if they get into the second level. And, our offensive line, from the earlier games, there are times they're not a big physical line that's going to push people around all the time. And so you're not going to just always just have big runs all the time. And so you just got to be patient, again, because you don't have Tua under center. At least in that Colts game, I'm 100% with Ron. I look at that and say, okay, this is not a stout run defense. They might stop Jalen Wright for a run. They might stop Devon Achane or Raheem Mostert for a run, but it's the play they don't. That, because these almost all these teams, if you look at defense, what they've went to is they're going to bring their corners up tight on Hill and Waddle, because they don't want to let them get those short passes out in space to those fast guys, and they just let their safeties sit back, and they're even getting very static in what I've been watching, because Miami runs so much misdirection all the time. They don't want safeties going the wrong direction, so they have them wait and identify where the ball is at before they do anything. That's tough to stop running games with, when you have the safeties kind of sitting there waiting, and you have your corners up, because you have your corner up tight. If Jalen Wright goes through that first level of defense, your corners are he's past your corner now, and he's faster than everybody else you got left out there. He can outrun them. And so you just kind of got to stick with it. You're going to hit some of them big runs, and I think they could have even hit more big runs in that New England game. So to me, that's the strength of your team right now, until teams decide we got to loosen up a little bit out here with our guys, because these guys are just ripping us on the ground. And that's when you can go back to some of the using Tyreek Hill on those wide receiver screens and Jalen Waddle, and keep attacking that middle of the field. And I think we got to use a lot more Jonnu Smith and Ingold in the passing game, because I think they're a difficult matchup for linebackers. And if they're going to stay light, if you're going to stay in nickels and dimes against this team, you just got to slam the ball at them and keep doing it, because they're playing light guys out there that are going to have a tough time. And I really like Devon Achane, but Jalen Wright's running like I know I've seen this comparison already on Twitter, but he reminds me a lot of a JJ. He runs upright, but he runs fierce. I hope he doesn't get hurt, but we need that right now. We need a guy that's not going to go down. How many times did he just stay up fighting, and our lineman got over there and started pushing him for like another 2-3 yards? We need that right now. That protects Tyler Huntley, because we can't win games with Tyler Huntley on 3rd and 13. He's just not very good. He doesn't have good mechanics. He didn't know what to do when he had time in the pocket. He started jumping around like frantic, and I'm just like, dude, you don't even have anybody tackling you. Just get through your progressions. But hopefully that'll improve. But that we need that identity as we go into the second half of the season, that we're not going to go in and you're not going to have Tua just throw all over everybody just to Waddle and Hill. We need Jonnu Smith. We need Alec Ingold. And we need running backs that are really slamming it in there that teams got to defend. And I think we have the personnel to do it right now. That's the takeaway for me right now, is we haven't had this, other than Tua, obviously. We have a pretty healthy team. Our line's still intact. I know we lost Phillips, but we have Chubb coming back hopefully within a month or so. I don't know what Isaiah Wynn's status is, but we should be having some guys come back to help this team have even more talent to put out there on the field. So I do feel like our season's not lost, and hopefully if we could somehow pull out this win against the Colts, if we can pull that off, that was my goal from the start when we lost to us. Can we just maintain 500 till he gets back? Because we'll be a completely different team with Tua. The offense will be so much better than what we have right now. And so, I'm not going to beat the Chris Greer horse to death that we didn't have a backup quarterback. Ron and I have already both been harping on that in past weeks enough. Everybody knows we didn't have a good plan in place for backup quarterback, but hopefully we'll get Tua back, and We're one game out of first. The Jets are a disaster right now. I don't know what they're doing. And Buffalo, this is not the same Buffalo team from the last 5 years. So this is still a very winnable division for the Dolphins.
Well, I can answer what the Jets are doing. They're letting Aaron Rodgers run the show because that's what every team ends up doing. Whatever Aaron Rodgers wants, Aaron Rodgers gets. He didn't like Robert Saleh. He just didn't. You could tell he didn't like him.
I don't like a lot of coaches, but they had, unless this is not true, they had security personnel come in there and escort him from the facility. Like,
there were conflicting
why?
Reports on that.
Maybe that's not true, but it was just.
I haven't seen conflicting reports. That's been reported by a lot of people. Like
there was one guy who went out there and said, "I have a source that says he was not escorted out by security." Which I listen. When I saw it the first time, I was like, wow, that seems a little drastic. But when I saw that other tweet that said, no, that's not how it happened. He left, but he wasn't taken out by security like he was garbage. Like it does seem a little extreme to escort the man out.
Is that a team source though? Because if he's getting his source from, if he's getting it straight from the team, of course they would deny something like that.
I don't remember who the guy was. I don't remember who it was, but it does seem a bit extreme for you to escort your as dysfunctional as Miami has been over the past decade. We did not escort Joe Philbin out of the building. We did not leave him behind in London. We told him to pack his bags, and he left on his own volition. We did not escort Adam Gase out the building. We did not tell Brian Flores and kick him to the curb, like literally just kick him in the butt out the door. We did not go that far. But so for somebody to say Robert Saleh was not allowed in the building and they kicked him out with security, like, he's not a criminal. He's y'all's former head coach. Like, is that what is that? Is that the official report?
That's been reported a lot. Like I said, I don't know what's true or not true. I just NBC was like,
Sports. I mean, listen,
why?
NBC will tweet whatever, will report whatever comes out first. I honestly don't believe that NBC knows the truth before they say it.
This is the same organization that locked out Jamal Adams. We got to remember that.
Yeah, so I don't know. Who knows what happened? But clearly, it's not pretty.
And I know I put it on a tangent there. I'm just pointing out the Jets are
the Jets are a bit of a mess.
Yeah,
they were supposed to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, the Jets scored up through week 5. The Jets had scored last year 93 points on offense. Through week 5 this year, they've scored 93 points on offense. That's all you need to know about what's going on with the Jets right now. That's two years in a row they win and acting like their defense was the 2000 Baltimore Ravens and their offense was going to be tops because they had Hall, Garrett Wilson, and Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers hasn't been good for 4 years. He hasn't been good since he won that last MVP. He hasn't thrown for 300 yards a game in like 40 months or something. I don't know, something like that.
Right.
Like the Jets have been overblown. The Bills have beat the Dolphins, the Cardinals, and the Jags. Like the division is still there. If we could get Tua back and get some things going, I understand that we're clearly not the offense we were last year. I understand we're going through some pains here, but the defense is absolutely better. It is much better coached, period, in the story. And if Mike McDaniel can commit to being a bit more conservative, commit to this running game, even when Tua comes back and work in some of that stuff, we could become a more dangerous team this year. Not than we were last year on offense, but overall, the biggest thing that concerns me is these special teams issues. That's one of my biggest concerns right now. I don't know how much longer Crossman survives.
A little less explosive, but a lot more consistent.
Yes. Yeah. You know what? If you look around, like half of the NFL is running the Shanahan offense. Teams are catching up. Scoring is down this year because defenses are figuring it out. And it almost feels like you're kind of having to go back a little bit more old school, play some defense, run the ball more, be a bit more conservative. Like everything goes up and down because offenses figure things out, what defenses are doing. Defenses figure out what offenses are doing. And this back and forth. And that's where we are right now.
How explosive has Kansas City been the last 2 years?
They have Patrick Mahomes. They can do whatever they want.
Yeah, they have Patrick Mahomes, but you're right. They're not winning, but with just Patrick Mahomes throwing for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns every game anymore. That's not how they're winning games. They're winning games in a different way, and they're still winning Super Bowls. I think that's Eric's point, you know?
Well, not every team can have a Patrick Mahomes, but you can have the best talk in the world if you go to discord.gg/onlyfins and check out the 3 yards per carry Discord server. So again, that's discord.gg/onlyfins. Speaking of 3 yards per carry, we do have another actual sponsor to go into. It is Underdog Fantasy, and we'll have you the read by our very own Alfredo Arteaga of the 3 yards per carry podcast.
Let me tell you about Underdog Fantasy. It's the greatest time of year again. Football is back, and it's here to stay till February. Over 1 million fans across 33 states got in the game last year by making picks on Underdog. Win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on your favorite player stats, for example, touchdowns, passing yards, and more. Do what I do and make Mondays and Thursday nights much more interesting. Making picks on Underdogs is straightforward, and signing up is even easier. Just head over to Underdog's simple-to-use mobile app or UnderdogFantasy.com. Sign up with the promo code 3yards. That's the number 3 yards. And Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to 1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code 3 yards, the number 3 yards, to claim your new customer special of a free pick and your deposit offer. Must be 18 plus, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 19 plus in Alabama, New England, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, 1-800-639-8783, or text NEXT-STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369.
All right, so let's get into a little bit of the comments here. John Green is talking about how when Teron Armstead misses time, all of this fails. The O-line is way too thin. So we've been talking about the offensive line and their ability to run the football. And I will say this. I feel like there is something to be said about the fact that since Teron Armstead did in fact play the entire game, and there was never a moment that I could see that he actually had to leave the game for an injury or any other reason. So there is a distinct possibility that Armstead's presence made it so that the offensive line could function enough to the point where they could feel comfortable running the ball, constantly speaking. So, Ron, I know that we've been going off about the team's depth and the fact that everybody's been getting hurt and stuff like that. Do you have concerns that if Armstead misses time, this whole philosophy that McDaniel has decided to lean into might end up going out the window?
No, I thought that Paul played okay. I looked at a bunch of his reps from the game before when he played. I thought he played okay. I think he'll get better. I think it was a much ado about nothing that we drafted a guy that won't play a single snap. That's what I heard from people who are quote unquote experts and write draft books, that Patrick Paul will not play a single snap for the Dolphins for 2024. That clearly wasn't the case. I think he'll continue to get better. So I'm not super concerned about it. I saw somebody in here. I wanted to put this comment back up. John Green doesn't seem super happy with the team, but I understand this O-line is not good enough to take the run heavy approach. This is not a power blocking scheme. This is a zone blocking scheme. It's much easier. Zone blocking was created years and years and years ago because it was hard to just always find 5 awesome power blocking O-line. So it was like we create this scheme that allows us to use different types of O-linemen, and it works if you just block in the right spot and you go to the right guy and you get your correct shoulder on his correct shoulder where you're supposed to. You can hold your dude. And that's the whole point of zone blocking scheme. And the Dolphins have been very good at running the ball with zone, mostly outside zone. But it seems like this year they're kind of doing more of the inside zone stuff, which is interesting. But I'm happy to see it. I think they could definitely do it. Now, if we get super decimated, it becomes harder because you're putting guys in there that are making mistakes. And it may not even look like they're making mistakes, but they are, because they're not blocking the right guy. You know what I mean? Or they block a guy and they're not supposed to block that guy. They're supposed to just kind of rub off that guy and block the next guy, etc. And they make little mistakes in there and things happen. So that's why injuries will help. But I'm excited to see them hopefully continue to do this the next 2 games, even if Tua does come back for the Arizona game. I don't have a lot of concern with if if Armstead, I just like forgot his name. If Armstead goes out, I think they're going to be okay. Yeah, it hurts some, especially when you go to pass the ball and you get into third. The biggest thing, man, don't put yourself in a lot of 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10. Those are drive killers for us, especially right now without Tua. It's 3rd and 10 is like almost like you're gonna try and get 4 or 5 yards, a short little run, or a little pass. Maybe a guy breaks it and you're punting or kicking a field goal. I mean, that's just where we are right now. And I know it's so hard for McDaniel to have that mindset and that concept, but he proved that he can do it. Man, the 4th and 1, we talked about it, Eric, on the post-game show. You were almost like, man, I wanted him to go for it. And I was like, I think he's going to just kick this field goal. And I'm getting excited here that he's doing it, not because he's not going for a 4th and 1, because it shows that he had restraint. That people said, remember I sat here 2 weeks ago and I said, this man has done more change in his personal life than trying to change the way he play calls on a Sunday. He has proven that he can change if he needs to. He can look in the mirror and say, I got to do better. I got to do different. And man, he committed. I mean, 4th and 1, he committed to that change, and he decided I'm all in on I'm punting or I'm kicking field goals, period, in the story, unless it's a situation where, well, it would be stupid if I kicked a field goal or punted. It's a minute left and we need a touchdown kind of situation. He was committed to it, and I hope he stays committed to it.
Channeling the late, great Tony Sperano with his decisions.
That's right.
It's
field goals,
situational
baby.
football, right? Like if we're playing the Chiefs, I do go for it because Patrick Mahomes is going to score points on me, but you're playing a New England team with that was one of the worst offensive lines I've ever seen. No disrespect to New England. That was a bad offensive line. I mean, our defensive line was just blowing in there all game, all over Brissett. So when I see that, I'm like, make those guys drive 70, 80 yards. Do not give them the ball on the 50 so they can get 3 points or more out of it. And I think he started to realize that, like, that's situational football. It's just not worth the risk for a 4th and 1 against an offense that bad. When you have Tua and stuff like that, you can make some mistakes because you're like, well, Tua's going to get me, 14, 20 points back. So if I don't convert, we'll be okay. But you got to, Ron is right on the head. That's what I was saying earlier. You got to help those quarterbacks like Skylar Thompson and Huntley. Is like, you don't put them in 3rd and long situations. Keep them in like 3rd and 4s. I know it's boring. I know sometimes people get frustrated when it's run, but Huntley can, even with his legs, convert a 3rd and 4th. He can do that. If his routes are covered, just take off and run or dump it off and maybe you can get a play out of it. But he's not. We got lucky a few times in this game. He had some passes that were ill-advised, to say the
Those
best.
were bad. Like, you want to talk about lack of arm strength. Like, this man, when he doesn't have a cannon like Josh Allen where he can just flip back and just throw it falling backwards. This man throws ducks if he doesn't set his
Tyreek Hill playing D-back saved our game because he threw back across his body into that end zone with a terrible pass that should have been picked off.
That one pass on the sideline, though, the left sideline, it was really close. That was the first time I'd see the timing between the two, be right. Every other time. And honestly, the only touchdown that the Patriots scored was because Huntley threw the pick inside our own, on our own side of the field, which gave them a really short field. That was the only touchdown that the Patriots even scored, or maybe they don't even score that touchdown. So protecting the ball, conservative. Yes, Arizona has a much better offense than the Patriots did, but that's still how you're going to beat them. If you're going to beat them, it's going to be the same way, the same philosophy. Versus, right. I agree. If you're playing the Chiefs or something, yeah, you might have to ramp it up a little bit and change philosophies there. But I think that he proved to himself that, hey, man, we can win games this way. So he showed that he can win games that way. It might be the first time in his head coaching career that he ever won a game playing like coaching that way. And that was exciting to see. That's him learning and growing as a head coach.
Going to go into the next question here. From the Raging Dolphins Maniac. Any updates on Josh Allen getting a non-concussion by twisting his ankle? Maybe he keeps his ankles inside his helmet.
You know what's kind of ironic about that is, if you'll remember, when Tua had his whole initial thing, is it was actually listed as back and ankle, and and this time with the Bills, Josh Allen, it's chest and ankle. So I would just appreciate if the Bills didn't copy our notes all the time here.
I mean,
But
look,
it's pretty clear what
the double standard is beyond annoying. I will say that we're back to our good friend Mike Florio. Apparently, Chris Nowinski, a co-founder of the Concussion Legacy Foundation, he told CNN that he wants to open an investigation into the Buffalo Bills to find out why was Josh Allen allowed to come in so quick after. Like, it wasn't because at least Tua left. Like, he didn't come back right away. He was gone for a while. But Josh Allen, like, the man looked like he was out cold, and he came back 6 plays later, and he was found with smelling salts. Like, come back, come on, Josh, come on, like, come back, please. And he's like, it's like, I'm okay, coach, I promise. Like, that's and again, not a whole lot of backlash from what I'm seeing. Like, there's no national outcry. There's no, I don't see ESPN opening up every single show with, do the Bills deserve to be punished for allowing Josh Allen to go back in the game? I don't see any of that any more than I see the Eagles getting attacked for letting Lane Johnson, who was literally barfing his whole inside body out on the sidelines, and he comes back 1 week later and it's like nothing ever happened. It's only with Tua that it's like the whole world is coming to an end because of concussions. It continues to be frustrating. It continues to be like, you can't even argue that it's not a double standard. It starts to fall into conspiracy theory type thing that the NFL really is out to get Miami because the rules don't seem to apply to everybody else. They just don't. Like, where is the public outcry for Josh Allen? Where is the public outcry for Lane Johnson? It doesn't exist. It's only Tua.
I don't care.
You
Oh,
think
go ahead.
maybe
Go ahead.
there's just and then you'll be able to cut right in. You think maybe there's like like after seeing it happen to Tua and him play, and it ultimately, for as much as it was made to be a big deal in the moment, it feels like it's much less of a big deal now. Do you think maybe there's kind of like a desensitization to it, to where, like, if the Tua thing never happened, the Josh Allen thing would be a much bigger deal?
No, because if Tua goes down with literally anything else the rest of the year, the whole NFL is going to be saying this man needs to retire before his whole life comes to an end, before he dies out on the football field. Like, that it's going to be that way too.
Mike McDaniel should be
tried
for murder. Yeah, and all this crap. Yeah. See, here's the thing. I won't say I don't care about, but what does not bother me is the social media /media reaction. We know they all have their biases. We understand they have, there's many Stephen A and all them that have biases against the Dolphins, don't like the Dolphins, don't like Tua because they didn't like Bama, et cetera, so on and so forth. Don't like McDaniel because A, B, C, D. What gets me upset is the lack of consistency with the NFLPA, because they were the big issue initially with the stuff with Tua. They were the ones that went above and beyond to try and punish Miami. Clearly, their spotter knocked out Teddy Bridgewater out of that one game out of spite. He didn't wobble. He didn't nothing. They just yanked him out, and he had to be gone. And, of course, with what Miami was going through, they had no choice but to keep him out of the game. And I can't forget whether that was a Jets game or a Vikings game. It was one of the two. But that's what aggravates me, is the NFLPA seems very inconsistent with it. Where's the outcry from them? They were so concerned about Tua. How is there no concern about Josh Allen? That's the part that aggravates me, because that's more of the unofficial body rather than social media and media. They're just chatting. They're just chatting. They're just talking. It is what it is there. It doesn't mean anything. It's just talk. That does frustrate me. And if I was the Dolphins, I'd be extremely frustrated by it.
I think it's this is a little off the topic, I know, but I think the number one problem right now in the NFL is Roger Goodell has had tenure way too long. I mean, this guy makes $40 million a year. He's been doing that for decades. So Roger Goodell is worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and he has power over players, and he has power over 32 multi-billion-dollar corporations on what punishments are, whether or not you get granted to have a franchise in a city, all sorts of things. Roger Goodell is the dictator, if you will. And I look at fines and it's just nonsensical. Like one guy gets fined $42,000, one guy gets fined $66,000, and there's no rhyme or reason. There's no code you can look at that said, hey, if you hit somebody head to head, here's your fine. It's just whatever he feels like dueling out for a fine. And then this is no different. The NFL was Miami got investigated when it was the NFL's independent neurologist that cleared Tua in that Buffalo game. And there was an independent neurologist that cleared Josh Allen. And how long does it take to do one play in an NFL game? A minute or two?
Now, hold on real quick. I want to emphasize something because there was one difference. Tua did, as far as I know, Tua did not have smelling salts to bring him back to consciousness.
I mean, to me, that's blatant that he was having issues. Like that's to me that why would the NFL not be all over that saying, and the Players Association? So I'm saying, why did you have to give that guy smelling salts? And they'll come up with some ridiculous reason, like it helps him not feel his ankle pain. I don't know what the reason is, but I want to see that independent neurologist from the NFL, who's a physician, get in front of the media and say, yeah, I cleared him in 1 to 2 minutes watching his head slam off the turf and they gave him smelling salts. I think that's a good clinical decision to make for his health. That's ridiculous. And so I to me, this is like, that's what the Bills organization is. They don't care about their players, and do we maybe aren't as tough as a reputation as Buffalo, maybe, but Mike McDaniel does generally seem to care about the health of his players. He's pretty cautious with protecting his players' health. And if you're a Buffalo player, I mean, they don't care about what Josh Allen's going to be in 20 years. They cared about trying to win that football game more than anything else and get him in there. And so, I mean, that's the way I look at it. But I mean, I feel like this is conspiracy. I feel like in general, Stephen Ross is not well liked in the ownership circle for whatever reason. They don't like him that well. And so Miami often gets raw deals on punishments. And like, look at the punishment we got for the tampering, which everybody tampers. A first and third round pick. I mean, that's worse than what the Patriots got, who've been caught red-handed twice, actually cheating, infecting the outcome of games.
What did Atlanta get for the Kirk Cousins tampering?
Nothing.
Nothing.
It's slap on the hand. And so again, that's me. That's why I'm bringing up the Roger Goodell thing. It's just like there's no consistency on punishment. There's no consistency on protecting players. I mean, I saw last year Devontae Parker couldn't even stand up straight, and the own player had to pull him off the field because he'd had a concussion. There's no spotter there. There's nobody paying attention that cared. And so it's just this, pull back the curtains on what the NFL is really doing and what really matters. And again, it's Roger Goodell at the top, and there's just inconsistent punishment and there's inconsistent rules. And that's just the NFL it is. And until they, I think, put some accountability at the top, you're going to have that. And, that's why, I mean, this is the government level. That's why you have a president change hands every 4 years, because you leave somebody in power for too long. That's when you start to get a degree of corruption. And I'm just saying, I think with Goodell in that standing, worth that much money now, the guys, he's ruled the NFL with an iron fist a long time. And I think it's just time for them to get somebody new in there to at least maybe try to balance things out a little bit and make sure things aren't corrupt and things are being handled fairly for all 32 teams.
All right, let's go ahead and because we're going to be running out of time shortly. I want to get into some more of these questions. Our good friend Indade, who is a regular listener to the show, thank you very much, by the way. Anybody want to try Patrick Paul at left guard like the Ravens have with Falele? I don't know if that's how you say his name or not. At right guard, my personal opinion with that is the same opinion that pretty much everybody else who has evaluated him. The man is too big. He's too big. He doesn't work as a guard.
He's quick though, man. For his, I mean, okay. Question: Who's quicker, Lester Cotton or Patrick Paul?
Patrick Paul. There's no question.
Okay. They would play Lester Cotton at guard before they play Patrick Paul there.
It's the long game with Patrick Paul though, and I tell you what, the Dolphins don't like too much cross training. They do just enough cross training for some backup positions, for some just in cases, but mostly. They're the opposite of what we've seen probably the last two regimes. they like to say, you're this, you're that, you're that, and that is where you stay. And especially if you're, going to be a starter eventually, they just don't want to mess with him. They're really having to rework him from the beginning, and I just don't think it's worth it to them for the long run, especially to do that. I understand that maybe in the moment it feels like the right move, but I just don't think it's what this regime is going to do. Whether that's right or wrong, I guess we'll see.
I think it's a reps issue too. Could he play left guard? Sure, but then you're not giving him the reps in practice at left tackle, which I don't expect Armstead to last another game. That's my opinion. He's a great lineman. He doesn't stay healthy, and you got to assume that like 75% of the games this season, Patrick Paul is your left tackle, and so he needs to be ready to play.
The other thing you have to keep in mind is that Baltimore runs a different offense than we do. Like right now, they are once again like this man is not human. I'm telling you, they are running on the back of Derrick Henry at 30 plus years of age and all that mileage on his treads, and he just keeps on chugging. Like this man is not human, and they are running power football with Derrick Henry and winning games with it. So if you have a guy like Falele, who is, as Inday points out, 6'8", close to 400 pounds. Like, yeah, just open up the hole and let Henry run. Miami doesn't function that way. We don't play power football like that.
But you can look at it, though, from a standpoint of, like, he's an offensive lineman. He's not a tackle. So there are certain times I would definitely think it could be beneficial. And granted, I don't watch every single trench play right now, but if you have a 3rd and 1 or the ball on the 1 yard line, I would rather have Paul in there at guard than Cotton. He was just trying to move a guy in front of him so we can push forward for a yard. It's because he's so big and powerful. But
can I make a suggestion? Can I make a suggestion? On 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1, you put Paul at left guard, you put Cotton at right guard, and you just push.
Oh, you do, yeah, and you put Huntley. Even if you have Tua, you put Huntley in there.
You put Huntley in there.
Yeah,
that's what
the brotherly shove.
The 3rd and 1 guy.
The South Beach, I don't know, something.
Come up with something.
The South Beach barrel. I don't know. We'll come up with something.
Call it whatever you want. I wouldn't play Tua on a 1 yard to go down the rest of his career.
No. Oh, yeah, I wanted to ask that since I didn't know if we were going to do a show again. Are we not doing a show next week, Lewis?
No, we're going to do a show. We'll do.
Oh, okay. You said we were taking off. Okay, because
we're taking off this Sunday.
I was going to ask a question. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I was going to ask a question, but I'll ask it next week because it pertains to it would pertain to a possible, or the week after, whenever, possible Arizona game for maybe when Tua comes back. So I'll hold my question till then.
But keep in
mind,
suspense, because I see John Green is like, yeah, he approves of that plan. Listen, that plan is only for extreme level resort, like goal line, 4th and 1 kind of stuff. That
as long as it's not Tua in there with it, I'm fine.
Convert it.
I think we will be much better on 3rd and 4th and short now that you've got Jay Ajayi with home run speed back there.
Nah, give it to Ingold. Everybody push. Everybody.
Did you say Jay Ajayi?
I know.
With home run speed.
Oh, got you. You're talking about right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you. Hey, you know what? I want to say, too, the first half before Mostert got hurt in that first game, he did not look like Mostert in the first game, like the Jags game. This past game, he looked like the Mostert of last year. There was something off about that first game in general, man. I don't know if it was like the whole team was off. They were just not right after that whole Tyreek incident and stuff. I mean, they won the game, but
there's something to the whole not practicing enough thing. I'm telling you.
Yeah, and there might be. You might be right there, Lewis. But Mostert was definitely much crisper, and I know we mentioned this in the after show, but much crisper in this game. So that was great to see. It's nice to see Mostert. I mean, it stinks that we lost Achane. Let's see what happens. Extra week there might help him get through protocol, hopefully, because having Mostert healthy, right, and Achane, like that, especially if we want to be run heavy and do those types of, a lot of those types of groupings and whatnot, man, that's what you want right there. That's nice. It's been nice to have all these backs because of some of the injuries. Mostert got hurt, and Achane got hurt, and we just have so many good backs that we're able to get in and still make it happen. But I'm excited about Wright. Like he's different than the other guys. He's almost like, I don't know. Yeah, you know what? You're right. It's Jay Ajayi. It's Jay Ajayi with home run speed. Run. You know what? Yeah. I can't come up with anything better. I'm just gonna go with what you said.
I mean, I'm cool with that. Like, if this man turns out to be Jay Ajayi again, that's more than fine with me. Like Jay Ajayi could have been a fantastic running back for many years if he didn't have that bone-on-bone problem. Like his body was, I hate to say it this way, but his body was flawed from day one. Like we were not going to get he was not long for the NFL world. So we got to enjoy him while he was there. And he was, after that 1 year, he was toast. So if Jalen Wright can be Jay Ajayi, but without the bone-on-bone problem, I'm good with running him into the sunset if it means we can get to a potential Super Bowl. Like what is again, not to compare him to Derrick Henry because he's a freak of nature, but my God, man, how old is Derrick Henry now? He's 32, and he's still running.
I think he's 30.
Is that how old he is? Let me look it up real quick.
I think that is right. Yeah.
Yeah, he's 30. Okay, so he
which is old for running back though. Just keep that in mind. Yeah.
I mean, but Derrick Henry has he might as well be 35. Like he's been running like 20 carries per game his entire career. So it's not like this dude is like, oh, he's got fresh legs. This man has tread. Like he's lost a lot of tread on those tires. Yeah. And he's still running like it didn't bother him. Like he's just keep going, just keep chugging. So if we can get somebody like that, hell, Derrick Henry at 33 might still be worth investing in the future.
Well, I mean, just again, keep in mind, I don't know that Mostert can run a 4.3 more, but I bet he can still run a 4.4. But these backs are ridiculously fast, and so again, you gotta be really careful if you're cheating up tight on the perimeter if they get through there, because they're just
they will
so
break
fast.
some. Like if you keep running the ball this consistently, there's going to be some times where they break some
and
really
they don't runs. They're not running tired very often because he's rotating them. So now you have 3 of them.
Yeah.
So you can have, the 10 best plays for Wright, the 10 best plays for Atchen, and the 10 best plays for Mostert, all running, completely fresh. So they should be faster than maybe all but 1 or 2 of the players on the defense combined. So
just keep doing this. You know what? Waddle, Tyreek for a little while. You're going to be on the back burner for a little while. And when the defenses decide, okay, we just can't let these guys do that to anymore, and Tua's back, your time will come again. So just be patient, guys.
One thing I'll pass on, this is the last thing I'll say, is assuming he stays healthy and is healthy, is Odell Beckham Jr. is very good at short slants. He's very good at it. And Tua is very good at throwing them. And so
Alf did some brief breakdown on OnlyFans. Odell won some of those routes. Huntley just didn't see him.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, Tua's going to see him play. And Odell Beckham Jr. has the best hands maybe in the game. Like he has some of the most short hands in the NFL.
He runs that slant really well. And so he's going to be getting the matchups with assuming you have Waddle and Hill healthy in those games when Tua's back. And you'll have Odell a few weeks into the system, having practiced and stuff. He's going to get some favorable matchups underneath, because you can't keep your safeties back and let Odell work underneath on those routes, or Tua and Odell are just going to pick you apart. So
I will say this. I'm just gonna end it with this. I hope, because I feel like part of it was that Huntley likes tight ends more than Tua does. I hope that when Tua comes back, that he's not going to they're not going to phase Jonnu Smith out again. I really hope that they don't.
It's a mystery to me, Lewis, because the 49ers have done so well with George Kittle. I thought we were going to be all over having an explosive tight end, and he just doesn't use them that much.
I just think the entire you have to think about it, though. The offense hasn't been able to stay on the field a lot, hasn't been able to sustain drives. There hasn't been a rhythm in play calling, and there just hasn't been a rhythm in the offense in general. And that is part of why he's just been a casualty of war, so to speak, at this point. They could just kind of start to get some rhythm, especially when Tua comes back. I think you are going to see some of that, Chad. I think you are. I think it's just been a matter of the offense has just been such a mess. The first, say, 3, 4, 5 weeks even. It just hasn't been right. Still not right. Won't be right at least till Tua comes back, if it is at all. I think that's part of why. So I'm just maybe a little bit more patience here. It's still a lot of season left in this. And, there's every season has different stories for most teams. And I think Miami hasn't, this isn't the only story for Miami. I think you're going to start to see some better things for Miami's offense as the year goes on. And we do some different things and get some rhythm, and he can get some rhythm in play calling.
Yeah, because I think it is. I think it is fair to ask that even if Tua was healthy from the start of the season, like it probably would have taken some time to integrate a Jonnu Smith into the offense. That's not, as much as they were doing those installs in preseason, those things tend to take time, and so I think he probably would have started to really, show what he can do in this offense probably around this time, week 3, week 4. Going forward. So I think this is probably about right for when we start to see Johnny play well.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and end here. Everybody, thank you all so much for joining us as always. Of course, there's no pregame or postgame because there's game, as the nerds like me would say. There is no game. Only my brother's gonna get that joke. We're going to go ahead. Like I said, we're calling it here. We will be back next week for more Pulse of Fins Nation. So don't
wish me luck. I hope I have internet next week.
Listen, fingers crossed for you, Ron, with a hurricane.
Yeah, got that eye is literally right now predicted to go over my house. So, but luckily I'm on the other coast of Florida, the East Coast.
And by the way,
as it exits out, it's not. I'm not over in Tampa or anything. They're the ones that have it the worst.
Right?
Can you stand on your roof with your shirt off? Get us some footage of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'll be there.
Right,
yeah.
all right.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
You'll go viral if you do that.
If I stood on my roof with my shirt off when it wasn't storming, I would sadly go viral. But it wouldn't be for good reasons.
Is it good reasons if there is a storm?
No, that would also be for bad reasons. It would just be for different reasons.
I cannot think of a circumstance where it would be for a good reason.
Nice.
And by the way, for anybody who's wondering, our good friend Duke, again, he was right in the middle of that Hurricane Helene situation in Asheville. So he basically made it a point out to say that, listen, there are people helping out, whether it's volunteers, whether it's just people doing whatever they can to assist. He's very grateful. Anybody who wants to make donations to try to help with hurricane relief, he told me to go to Samaritan's Purse. They are helping a lot with making sure that helps out. So if you want, you can go look that up and you can help. You can coordinate with them to try to assist with the hurricane relief. Once again, that's going to be it. We will see you all next week for another episode of Pulse of Fins Nation. Good night, everybody.